Here, and I will be reacting to Kirby lore. All 4 videos from WoolieVersus. Anyways, let's get this reaction started, shall we? 3, 2, 1, go. Huh? Oh, sorry.
Gluttony, greed, pride, sloth, wrath, envy, vainglory, lust. Time and time again, the wages of inerasable sin are measured, and the cost is found to be the death of all things. In this world, from the moment life begins, the sword of Damocles hangs overhead, waiting to drop on a moment's notice. Because in this world, though the gods are long dead, they left their tools behind, and mere happenstance may grant a king's prize to a fool's errand. To understand why, one only has to look to the past. Aeons ago, there existed an interstellar civilization of unparalleled science and technology. Their vast accomplishments displayed such incredible understanding of the universe that the traces of their existence suggest that they had solved the riddle of entropy many times over. Forging unique artifacts and engines of limitless energy, they found a way to harness and control aspects of reality itself. Though no record survives to tell how high their ambitions rose, the remnants unearthed from the ruins and dust of their homeworld reveals a terrifying and awesome potential. Trinkets and baubles, capable of manipulating the unconscious minds of all life. Crowns,
The Master
with their
Crown.
own wills and desires, granting seemingly limitless ability to edit matter. Celestial engines, calculating any desire and granting any wish. Infinite potential
Galactic
in the form
Nova.
of a clockwork star. They were the ancients of Halcandra, and the only thing harder to grasp than their technological omnipotence is the terrifying thought of what unknowable power was capable of causing their extinction. Perhaps it was hubris, their own creations run amok, an unmaking of their own design. Or perhaps it was the remnants of a dormant god of creeping chaos. We may never know.
In the fight for your life, trusting your instinct is everything.
One moment. Sorry about
What
that.
we do know is that at some point before their extinction, amongst their midst, a cult formed. A cult dedicated not to the realm of science and interstellar technology, but to the dark arts of mysticism, unholy magics, and unknown gods lurking in the space between realms. A great thinker once said, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. But what is to be said when both are proven to exist? One can imagine the ancients being wary of this path, and the dangers that come with accessing that which lies beyond our realm. One can imagine this cult embracing the unknown at all costs, shunned, but operating in the shadows. Suddenly, a time of galactic crisis befalls the ancients from their homeworld of Halcandra, and what remains to this day is a twisted metal landscape of ruin.
Egg engines.
Whether untruth or not, this cult of darkness would eventually proclaim that it alone was responsible for ending this horrible nightmare of a crisis. Witnessing the cultists fall into what they deemed madness, the ancients ultimately chose to confine these souls to a planet-sized iron vessel at the farthest ends of the galaxy, to a forgotten fortress known as Jambandran. With nothing but time and hatred on their side, the Jambandran cult devoted themselves with renewed resolve to the worship of their unknown dark gods, old ones that perhaps, in the time of crisis, finally started answering back. The ancients did not have much to say about the progenitor of this cult's dark powers, or, if they did, they carefully chose not to speak in detail of it with their written texts. All that is recorded was the name Void Termina and the circumstances with which it was vanquished and sealed. 4 heroes, using 4 spears, impaled and imprisoned it in a dark place known as the Jamba Heart. Countless ages pass, the ancients vanish, but the Jambandran cult lives on under leadership of Highness, the Efficient of Doom, with a suspicious appearance to others who bear knowledge of long-dead civilizations. Possibly due to the powerful resolve of devout religion, or possibly due to no longer being restrained by concepts such as sanity, Highness, a wizard of the dark arts, carried his hatred of the ancients and their science across all of time.
Kirby lore from WoolieVersus. Why?
And you forwarded that to my tablet? Richard?
Yeah. Highness is what I like to call batshit insane.
His entire being consumed with this hatred, he turned to the Jamba Heart, now in his possession. A song of supplication is sung in reverence of a sealed demon god. Despite not fully understanding how to break the seal, the ritual ends almost as quickly as it begins. Highness' mistake in the process causes the Jamba Heart to shatter into thousands of pieces, spreading corruption all over the galaxy. The Jambandran devotees, deploying from remote fortress Jambastion, waste no time collecting the shards, until a happenstance traveler gets involved and nearly stops Highness' plan to rebuild and summon his god. In a final mad soliloquy, Highness curses the traveler as if he were one of the ancients in loathing, and even accuses it of probably living somewhere pretty and peaceful, while the Jambandrans were tossed aside and forgotten. He then throws his and his servants' lives away, eagerly, into the waiting Jamba Heart in a sacrificial final plea. And the plea is heard.
Unfortunately.
Hatred, obsession, jealousy, greed. The darkness gathered by Highness has transformed into a corrupt power within Void Termina that conflicts with his newly forged soul. Void Termina arises once more, and with each passing moment, its very existence is reminiscent of things that have come before. As it comes to terms with its own sentience, we learn that there is more within the Void. The true dark power that the ancients feared has been reborn as the Void Soul. As the Void Soul ebbs and flows in its ethereal form, one cannot help but consider the possibility of this postnatal god's connection to previous threats to the universe. Impulsive, uncertain, aggressive, the Void Soul's voice is eerily reminiscent of a familiar one, its music is eerily reminiscent of a familiar tune. It has many forms, but finally reveals its true face. If one were to try to recreate what they saw, it might go something like this. First, you draw a circle. Then, you dot the I's. Add a great big smile, and presto. It's...
Kirby Lore, Book 1, A Gnawing Hunger for the Fabric of Reality.
While hospitals have doctors and nurses, we have mom and dad. Because at Ronald McDonald House Charities, we help families.
Nobody wants to hear that.
Even when
We're here for the Kirby lore, so get to it.
And so, for the sake of something as trivial as the survival of the collective universe, the entity revered as the greatest warrior in the galaxy was sealed into a celestial state of non-being and hidden within the wounds of space-time. Though the flow of time should apply to all things, there are beings who instead serve as the proverbial rock in the river that force the course of events to part and conform to its presence. It harbored intentions that could not be read. Its designs remain uncertain, but it didn't matter. Whether it stood for a fleeting thing called peace, or for the glory of blood and war, all that mattered was that the immense power emanating from the entity henceforth referred to as Galactic gave the universe cause for mortal fear. A dread born from the simple thought that at mere whim or happenstance, billions of lives could be eradicated in mere moments, as entire planets become nothing more than the cost of a war waged with his blade. Thus, in the time of the ancients, because the thing would not be killed, a decision was made for posterity. This life-obliterating force would remain sealed away, perhaps, until all things return to dust. But perhaps elsewhere, if we follow the forks and branches of the river of time, we might find a conqueror from dreamland unknowingly setting in motion a butterfly effect of events, sending us down a different course from the history we know as Milky Way wishes. Perhaps in this reality, the militant extremist called Meta Knight became the first to unite the summoning stars and caused the reawakening of a long-lost clockwork star, a legacy of the ancients' technology, capable of calculating any input query, exporting any desired result, effectively granting a wish. This particular artificial celestial body, known as Galactic Nova, in one timeline sets off a climactic battle for planet Popstar. But in another, perhaps instead it hears the wishes of its summoner, Meta Knight. Elsewhen, a different clockwork star, once lost to the aeons, the all-powerful computer known as Star Dream becomes self-aware, completely wiping the mind of the unfortunate soul that uncovered it and obtaining a sense of self in the process. The computer summons all it can to save itself from being destroyed by Meta Knight's quest for justice. The fact that said unfortunate soul was a grieving parent on the cusp of being reunited with their child thought long dead is of no consequence to Stardream. A deserved comeuppance, one might think, meted out by one who was temporarily referred to as Mecha Knight, a mind slave of Stardream. Sensing its own mortality drawing to a close, Stardream's space-time transport engine is activated out of desperation, an act once forbidden by its creators. Once again, a tool of the ancients puts the universe in jeopardy as it reaches for the sealed force from beyond. None too pleased with the reasons he was yanked through space-time, Galactic Knight thanks Stardream by snuffing the living star out with nonchalance before turning to face his opponent. And so, time flows on. If we stop here, at the present day, in this moment, we might find Galactic Knight once again disturbed from eternal slumber. Though we aren't certain of the exact nature of why, we are told that the infinite voices of the dead began to call out from the underworld in desperation for life during a time when the lost cult sacrifices itself to birth Void Soul. It is said that the voices of those beyond the threshold of life are heard, and they resonate with the temporal warrior. It can't be said for certain whether the deity that appears is simply a messenger of the dead or the very embodiment of their regrets. In either instance, the secret is out. Its form is one we've known all too well, the very first friend we made on our journey from the beginning. It lands gently, as it has done so many times before, but this time, it atomizes the warrior where it stands in a blinding light. The universe can only observe helplessly as two unfathomably powerful cosmic entities are reborn as one. The butterfly was a lurking god. God help us all.
The best way to escape an impending threat? Become the bigger threat. Suit up as Samus to escape a treacherous new planet and find the power you need to take on her deadliest enemy yet. Metroid Dread, rated T for teen, only on Nintendo Switch.
Not interested.
Bending the laws of space-time to one's will, ripping open its fabric, to come and go as one pleases, is a simple thing. One only need hold a shard from the planet Ripple Star. A known catalyst for raw purifying energy, the full capabilities of an unbroken shining crystal remain unknown. But the urgency with which the flying inhabitants of Ripple Star fight to defend it surely implies an understanding that no cost is too high to keep it from falling into the hands of those who would find the concept of free will to be a mild inconvenience. Better broken in the hands of none than intact but controlled by formless entities of unnerving origin. We find ourselves in the thick of a race to reunite the crystal shards. They've been scattered throughout the universe in the final moments before the fall of Ripple Star. But the fate of this place and the ominous black thing that emerged from the pit are not the focus of our study today. Today we move to look at one of the countless ends of the galaxy that the shards scattered to. Shiver Star, a frozen wasteland covered entirely in ice and snow. We're told that the people who lived here have long since moved away. A brief stop in an abandoned structure supports the idea that this was once a place of commerce, brimming with life. A subsequent stop to a self-operating factory, however, brings into question what kind of life, as we see test tube after test tube lined up containing unknown floating homunculi, disfigured forms of questionably living things. It does not seem a stretch to imagine these unholy abominations have never known existence outside of the vat they were grown in, and with the land now forsaken by its former populace, perhaps they never will. A last stop at the end of this factory reveals the final creation of the former inhabitants of Shiver Star, a hostile automated machine of war known as HRH. It appears to attack and annihilate all living things it detects without prejudice. Could it have played a role in the vanishing of the inhabitants? As we leave Shiver Star, if we look a little closer at its landmasses from space, one might notice they seem familiar. This world is our world. This future is our future. The existence of undead gods and toys of genocide is not some far place that we can observe from safe distance. It's here, it's coming, and all signs point to most of us not making it. The dead thing known as the Earth has long since been abandoned and forgotten by any who would know its name. Those who journey there now know not how many billions of lives met their end and returned to nothing before the peaceful snow covered them forever. But what replaced the human race? What floats in the clouds above the dead Earth? An official description of this post-apocalyptic wasteland offers us one final clue. Snowy and cold, Shiver Star is a winter wonderland. A wonderland full of monsters and dark matter. You are zero. You are a boundless, amorphous sapience, floating agelessly, surrounded on all sides by infinite oblivion. There exists a world outside the numbness of endless chaos, a world of fleeting life, meaningless in its inception, meaningless in its finality, but ultimately persistent. The concept of a body means very little to you. A thought is all it takes to bleed a little of your own consciousness into a smaller vessel, which can carry out its own existence simultaneously as an extension of your will, subject to your will, as all things have been and should be. There is no free thought, there is only you. You are zero. The meaningless life forms grow and spread their fleeting existence from planet to planet, searching endlessly for an end to their misery. They spread to new galaxies. They die. They name the endless chaos around you the hyperzone. They die. They discover molecules of your essence and refer to it as dark matter. They die. They create elaborate reality interfacing tools. They die. They forget everything about themselves and cease to even search for purpose in their fleeting lives. They die. They are now content to merely exist, then die without consequence. The longer you observe, the more this continued measure of futility appears to march on. You are zero. With a thought, an endless reign of your living consciousness swarms the universe and introduces meaning to the meaningless, consequence to the inconsequential. You are zero. The life forms are now also zero. The only thing sacrificed in the process is free will, and nothing of importance was lost. You are a vessel of zero. You are you, but you are also zero. Traveling the universe alone for eternity and a day, your life of isolation eventually happens across a planet known as Popstar. Its life forms are helpless, making choices and living lives without zero. These life forms do not know zero, so to them, you're dark matter. They appear to be happy, but that's only because they don't understand. How could they? You've decided. They must all become zero. But somewhere within the subconscious that is formed in your isolation from zero, you learn about them, and you take a form that these life forms would think highly of. An honorable warrior. Perhaps then, this isolation will end. But are you still zero? You are zero. Or you were zero. But it seems like you're actually just dark matter? You can't really remember. You used to be part of something bigger, with purpose. But for some reason, those memories and feelings are gone. You find yourself quickly in the company of new friends. These friends call you gooey. It feels good to have friends. You are gooey. But more importantly, you're hungry. The warrior known as Dark Matter concentrated its efforts to the central Popstar location of Dreamland. Strangely, instead of possessing all inhabitants, it only possesses the self-proclaimed king, and instigates a campaign of terror by isolating the islands of Dreamland from each other, by stealing their connecting rainbow bridges. Straying from the ideals of Zero, Dark Matter appeared to be out for victory by conquest instead of mind slavery. It was not at all surprising that the life forms would eventually mount a resistance. Dark Matter expected as much, and would readily reveal its true form to quell the threat. But what was surprising was that the very essence of that which he stole, the rainbow drops, would come to forge a blade that could withstand and riposte his power. In this naivete, the first known case of dark matter, independent of its creator, was defeated. One can imagine that the failure of one of Zero's vessels of consciousness in its isolated defeat would nevertheless capture the attention of the Source. It would not be surprising, then, to know that the higher presence itself would turn its attention to the direction of Dreamland. At a whim, the sky is blotted out with a mass of dark matter, the likes of which has never been seen. Almost all life on Popstar is relieved of free thought. Save for two individuals. One with origins mysteriously linked to Zero. The other with origins mysteriously linked to long-dead things. Unaware of just how many tools of the ancients could be found waiting on this particular planet, the dark matter mass has its plans fall short, in no small part due to a confluence of events. The presence of an immune, traitorous vessel of Zero with no memory, combined with a weaponized artifact of concentrated positive energy, created the perfect antithesis to the negative force of dark matter. Feeling inexplicable pain for what must be the first time in its existence, the defeat of another dark matter vessel necessitated following it into the hyperzone itself, and direct confrontation with Zero. Eviscerated and gutted to the core, in a fit of unfathomable rage, the bloodied, weeping eye, the embodiment of long suffering, rips itself out of its torn socket, casts off its old flesh, and moves in to kill the cosmic pink thing that devours celestial bodies within its gaping maw. Zero experiences death. Death to being such as Zero, however, is less of a conclusion and more of an educational experience. As the river of time ebbs and flows, breaking course into different forks, beings inexplicably related to the source of dark matter appear in unexpected places, at unexpected times, with unexpected names. When Zero is next seen again, it is lurking in the skies of a frozen husk of the planet once called Earth, no longer turning its attentions towards planet Popstar, but instead the fairy lifeforms of similar planet Ripple Star. As good a place to start as any. Angelic, damaged, and forever weeping a tear of blood, Zero Two bears no ill will towards the meaningless living things. Its desire to mind-slave all life comes from a place of benevolent liberation. After all, it is officially described as a benevolent creature. Zero Two rarely presents any trouble in the cloud levels of Shiver Star. Not unlike humanity's choice to eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and live by their own decisions, the inhabitants of Popstar could not have known that their great sin was mere existence outside of the mental enslavement of the endless sentient void. When the skies turn black as bubbling pitch, and the bleeding begins, the bulging, uncaring eye of the void will make no effort to explain its intentions. Quite simply, its presence represents a concept. You no longer have a say in being you. The flesh vessel you currently inhabit will now be piloted by the will of the void, until said worthless vessel has rotted into nothing. Your former consciousness will be vacated, reduced to the role of voiceless spectator in your own head, henceforth until your end, and in the name of Zero, it will be considered a mercy.
So there you have it for that, and I hope to see you guys next time. Take care, everybody.